Welcome to the Swim Strong Dryland podcast. We are dedicated to inspiring and educating the swimming world. Our podcast highlights the work, character, and achievements in and around the Swim Strong community.
I am excited to bring Kathleen Modder here for the Swim Strong Dryland podcast, but we are going to jump right into the rapid fire questions. Kathleen, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. What is your favorite swim meet food?
Matcha strawberry applesauce.
Ooh, good pick. What's the best Halloween costume that you've ever worn?
I was She-Hulk last year for Halloween, so that was fun.
Like it. What's a skill that if you could automatically perfect it, not swimming related, what skill would you choose to perfect?
I want to be able to do perfect pull-ups again.
Oh, I like it. It's a good choice. If you could hang out with any celebrity, who would it be?
It's gonna sound bad. Kim Kardashian.
There you go. What is the funniest swim meet memory that you have?
I slipped, like banana peel slipped on the pool deck one time and just ate it.
Oh man, that is not fun. Who's your favorite cartoon character?
I like it's technically like not a cartoon, but like Calvin and Hobbes. I like them. They're like, I guess it is. It's a cartoon, but
And last one, what's your favorite thing about Swim Strong Dryland?
I like that y'all like are swimmers and you like make dryland for swimmers because a lot of things are not like actually swimming based and swimming focused. So
yeah,
it's really cool.
Well, those are your rapid fire questions. You did a great job. Kathleen is a Swim Strong alumni now at Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. So we're excited to have you on here. Tell us a little bit about your story, your journey up to this point, when you started swimming and kind of what that has looked like for you up to this point.
So I started swimming when I was 4 at my neighborhood pool, and you know those little like wetsuits that have the long zippers so you can zip them up yourself. So I wore one of those, and I refused to swim unless someone was holding the little zipper. So that was where I started. And then I joined fish when I was 7, and I swam with fish all the way through my senior year of high school. I'm actually going back to practice tonight, so I'm excited to see Nicole. But my junior year of high school, I committed to swim for Rhodes College in Memphis, and I've been there the past 2 years. So I'm a sophomore this year.
How did you choose to go to Rhodes?
Well, it's kind of weird. So when I was going through the recruiting process, I was only talking to D1 schools up north. And I actually turned down a couple schools because I was like, I don't want to go to school in the South. And then Steve reached out to me. He's our coach at Rhodes, and I talked to him and I went and visited, and I came back from that and I was like, I don't want to go anywhere else. A big thing for me was that I had been getting sick since I was 13. I had POTS. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is like a genetic connective tissue disorder. So my connective tissue doesn't hold my my joints and stuff correctly, so I dislocate things. And I have scoliosis, but the EDS affects that because it doesn't hold my like muscles and ligaments and stuff don't hold my spine up correctly. So my spine's deteriorating. And so thinking about all of this, I was like, I don't know if I will be able to swim 4 years. And so I wanted to go somewhere where I could still compete and still swim at the collegiate level, but not have not the pressure of swimming D1, but I didn't want like my scholarship that I get from Rhodes is independent of if I swim or not. So I didn't want the two to be connected. I wanted to be able to swim and I wanted to be able to go to school where I want. And I didn't want I wanted to swim because I wanted to swim. not because there was something holding me there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you've been through a lot more than most people ever have to go through. The fact that you're swimming in college is incredible. I don't think people realize the things that you've had to battle through. And actually, even I didn't realize until later on into your swimming career with the fish, and you actually started a social media account on Instagram called Kathleen's Cancer Chronicles. Is that right? Is that the correct? Okay. And I've loved being able to follow along and just learn and be inspired by you. Tell everybody a little bit about that, your journey and dealing with cancer as a young athlete and a young girl.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. So I actually found the original tumor because of swimming. So I have Hürthle cell thyroid cancer. So the original tumor was in my neck. Um, and I think it was summer 2020 when we were swimming outside, and I kept having trouble breathing when I was swimming. And I already get hives when I work out. So I thought I had mast cell activation syndrome. It goes with POTS, EDS, all that other stuff. But I I thought I was having an allergic reaction. And I went to an allergist and he told me that I was having panic attacks and that I was just super anxious. And I'm like, I don't think I'm anxious at practice. I don't feel anxious, but I was like, okay,
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
And so I just kept swimming. I felt like I was choking basically when I was swimming. Like it felt like my throat was closing.
Wow.
And so that was really tough. And so eventually I went to a new doctor who does like robotic spine surgery on NFL players. And I went to him about my back because it really hurt. And he got an MRI on my spine, but he got it all the way from my neck down to my tailbone. And that's where they found the original tumor. So he found this tumor, and just like I went to practice the next day. I did all of this. It wasn't supposed to be cancer. They did all these tests, they did all these biopsies. And I think by the time I got surgery, everything that they had done, there was like a 30% chance that it was cancer.
Okay. Wow.
So I had signing day on November 10th, and then November 11th, I got surgery. I got
Wow.
my first surgery. They took half my thyroid out, the half of the tumor, and it took almost a month to get pathology back because I was officially diagnosed December 2nd, 2021.
Okay.
Because the type of cancer I have is so rare. It's like 2% of thyroid cancer, and then like only 5% of thyroid cancer is in people under 18. And so it just basically everything that happened was not supposed to happen. And so they thought they got it all out. I kept swimming through all of this. I swam at States a week before my second surgery when they took the other half of my thyroid out. And what I had absolutely no idea of was that there was cancer throughout my entire body. Because when they took my tumor out in the pathology, it said suspicious for vascular invasion, but they couldn't really diagnose it. And so they didn't think anything, but I get really strong gut feelings about things. And I knew it was cancer, and everyone tried to tell me that it wasn't. I knew that it spread, and everyone tried to tell me that it didn't, and it did. But they took my other half of my thyroid out 2 days after States. So at state finals, all that stuff.
That's so wild.
It like thinking about it, it really is that I had no idea. And I was so sick.
So let me I want to get back to this story and kind of you now fighting this and dealing with diagnosis. But tell me, but I need to pause because how the heck did you swim state finals when you were going through all this? Like that's wild. I feel like going through something like that, most people would like be at home in their bed you know, and rightfully so, right? Like rightfully so. You would have had
Yeah.
every right to do something like that. Like, what were you thinking? How did
I
you do
think,
that?
like, I love swimming, and people always ask me, they're like, "Why do you keep doing this? Like, why do you go to school? Why do you do?" And I'm like, "Because I love it."
Mm,
And, like, one thing that I've always swam. I love being in the water. I love the feeling of being in the water, and it's never been an option for me
mm.
to quit. Like, my mom has asked me 1,000 times. Like, I passed out in the pool one time
Oh my
after I
gosh.
swam 100 fly, and she asked me, "Do you wanna stop? Like, do you wanna quit?" And I shut her down every time. And, like, I mean, I've heard my mom talking to people, and she's like, "Sometimes I think she wills herself across the pool." And I do. Like,
Mhm.
um,
It's incredible.
I just it's just never been an option for me to stop. Like, before I was diagnosed with POTS, there was a point where I could not go 10 minutes without swimming and then getting out and collapsing on the
Oh
side
my
of the pool.
gosh.
And I I showed up every single day, and I did what I could, and if that meant 10 minutes and then I couldn't do anything else, then that was my 10 minutes for the day. But
Mm.
then I came back the next day, and I kept going, and I kept trying, and just it's just one day at a time. Like,
Wow.
I have this little rock, that one of my friends gave me, and it says "one day at a time," and that's just how I've gone through this.
That's amazing.
Uh,
That's absolutely incredible to hear your mindset. Um, Dealing with all those things, you have so many reasons that you could have stopped. And, you know, I think people can learn so much from that because I mean, people will not swim a best time and like be like, "Oh, maybe I should quit swimming." And you're like, "Hey, like I can't even like swim more than 10 minutes without collapsing and like I'm still going." So like, you know, I just I feel like the mentality that you have is significantly different from the average person. Significantly different. Is that something that you've had pre all the diagnoses, or is that
um,
something you've had to develop? Like, hey, I don't have a choice. I've
I
had to develop this.
it was definitely something I had to develop. I was really, really fast when I was younger, and I was able to do a lot of things that I can't do now. Um, and so just having to, like, reframe the way I think about achievement has been really difficult, and I'll admit there have been days where I've sat on the side of the pool and cried,
Hmm.
like, just sobbed while I was swimming, like, got out and just been so upset that, like, I I couldn't do this thing that I could do when I was 12, and
Mm,
I'm, like, 18 and should be able to do a lot more.
mm,
Um, but it's just like, I will have my days, but I've never thought about quitting.
yeah. No,
Like,
that
I
makes
can't say that that's ever been a real option for me.
hmm that makes perfect sense too. And you're a human. You're gonna have emotions. You're gonna have
Yeah.
experiences. And when you experience loss and things get taken from you, like what you used to be able to do versus what you can
Mhm.
do, that's not easy for anyone. And so to have you share those things candidly, honestly, openly, I think is so powerful. Um, because I feel like most people would hide those things, like, and just share the happy side of things, and you know, the other side, not all the behind the scenes details. And like,
Yeah.
no, like that's real. And I think just from a even from a coaching perspective, I can say like there's you come across like a handful of kids in your life for sure who inspire you. Um and it's never the people who just go fast times, right? Like fast times can be inspiring, sure, but it depends on what the journey looked like.
Yeah.
You know, I have had people who have never made any type of national meet or even come close, been some of the most inspiring people in my life and as a coach. And I've had people who have done amazing things in this sport and swam at the highest levels, and that's inspiring too, but they're on the same level. Like, and what determines for me whether something is inspiring to me or not is your character in the process, what you've had to do to get there, right? Like if you go you swim 100 fly and it's just something that's close to the best that you've done since having cancer, like I would probably break down sobbing on the pool deck because knowing all the things that you had to go through to do that, that would be insanely inspiring. So what you're talking about, reframing what success looks like and what you're, especially going from like, hey, you said I was really, really fast as a 12 and under,
Yeah.
but then I started having to deal with all these things. Reframing isn't just like, oh, this is, I need to change my definition of like, I need to change like the thought of like, oh, can I still be successful or not? No, it's like redefining success and realizing success is much more than just the times on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm super inspired just hearing you say these things. Because that's really what it is. Success is doing the best you can with what you have, and you have no idea how many people that can inspire. And someone who wins a gold medal versus someone who's doing what you're doing and just keeps swimming, like gold medal is cool, but I'm sorry, what you're doing is cooler. It just is.
Yeah.
So hopefully that can be encouraging too, because even just hearing you say it, I'm like, dang, this girl's incredible.
Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
It just like I used to go best times all the time. Even into high school, I was still like going best times a lot, but it turned into if I can swim one more 100 than I did yesterday or 5 more minutes or like even just putting like being able to put more effort and more energy into something, that was a win. Like last week at practice, I felt horrible. I thought I wasn't going to be able to make it. And then I get there and I'm able to swim all 12 100s that we did.
That's awesome.
And like that, just like the little things like that I haven't been able to do in a long time.
That's really cool.
So,
well, talk a little bit about, so I want to dive more into your journey and your fight and your mindset through all this. You said you've been dealing with things since you were young, like I believe you said 13 years old,
yeah.
all kinds of different things that have come up. What has changed from when you first started dealing with these things and fighting these things from then to now? Like, what's that journey looked like? What do you do as a 13-year-old girl who gets these different diagnoses, and your mindset around that and how you respond to it, and how has that changed over time?
It definitely, I think it was a lot harder on me before, like when I was younger. I think even just you're less emotionally mature than I would be as a 19-year-old. But just I think this entire process, even not related to swimming, just in life, is grieving the life you had before, like while you're still alive, which is weird. It's a very weird concept. But there's a lot of things that I can't do. And just the initial shock of that there are things that I'm not going to be able to do and there are things that are going to limit me, that was really, really difficult for me. And it does build up. And sometimes it's like, holy cow, like there's like every time I turn around, it's like I'm getting hit by a truck. Like I think like this sounds really bad, but every time I got a new diagnosis, my mom would say, "At least it's not cancer." And then it was cancer.
Oh man.
So it's like it was she was trying to put it in perspective that like it there's still like I'm still able to do things, I'm still able to do whatever, but I think it was definitely harder when I was younger, and yes, like, being diagnosed with cancer was, like, shocking, and I mean, I knew, like, deep down, I knew that I had cancer, but just the reality of it, and then just
Mhm.
the fact so they thought they got it all out, right? And then after I got the second half of my thyroid out, they used this blood test called thyroglobulin, and it basically any thyroid cells in your body will make thyroglobulin. And so if you have no thyroid, theoretically, your thyroglobulin should be 0. Well, mine was 670.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're like, something's wrong. And I knew something was wrong. And they got a CT of my chest and they were like, there's a tiny tumor in your lung, but there's nothing else. So we can't say that this is definitively anything. So they were like, it's fine. But then my surgeon was fighting for me and she was like, you need to go to Washington Hospital Center in DC. You need to go get this dosimetry, which is so they use radioactive iodine to treat thyroid cancer because
Mhm.
your thyroid cells take up iodine and they make thyroid hormones, so they kill it with radioactive stuff, which is crazy because it's a pill that you ingest. So they bring it
Okay.
up in an ammo can in a metal, like in a box, in a lead can, in a lead box. And
Wow.
then they're like, eat this. Uh,
You're like,
and then
okay.
they're like, don't go within 3 feet of people. But so they basically um, they use all these different tests and scans with dosimetry to find out how much, like the highest safe dose of radioactive iodine that you can get based on your tumor burden, based on all these things. Well, they found 12 tumors, I think,
Wow.
on this dosimetry scan. So there was one on my skull that they actually didn't see. They found that later. Um, it's been there the whole time, but it was missed a couple times. That's a whole other thing. But
Wow.
there was one on my skull, 4 on my spine, 2 on my tailbone, 1 on my 7th left rib, 2 in my right hip, and 1 in each arm by my shoulder. So, like, my
Jeez.
body was filled with cancer. Like, it was all over the place. Um, and just, like, that, like, going around, like, knowing that my body was, like, filled you know what I'm saying? Like, that
Mhm.
I think that was the most, like, the hardest part of it for me because once thyroid cancer spreads, it's considered incurable.
Mhm.
So, right now, I think I have 4 or 5 tumors, but this is the best that it's ever going to be, and so having to, like, process that I'm going to live with this has that besides the initial, like, diagnoses at 13, that has been the hardest part
Mhm.
because it it's something it's never going to go away. Like, there will never be an after cancer for me.
Mhm.
It will always be with it.
And
So,
so, with that being the case right now, like, where are you with the process? What does it look like keeping it in check?
mhm.
What is that process day to day for you now and dealing with that?
So it's been pretty good right now. I've been stable for over a year, so
Awesome.
that's been really good. I have 2 tumors on my spine, 2 on my tailbone, 1 on my skull. So there's
Okay.
5. Um, but basically, I get this drug that stops it regulates the way my bones make cells so that it makes it harder for new tumors to attach to them, and it makes it harder for me to break something, especially with the tumors on my spine. They're worried about fractures and stuff. So I get that. I used to get it every 3 months, but it can make your bones really brittle. So they're moving it to like every 5-ish months. And then I just get blood work every couple months. So it's not the actual process of dealing with it day to day is not bad, but the reason it isn't bad is because there are a lot of things that don't work for thyroid cancer, like chemo doesn't
Mhm.
work, cytotoxic chemotherapy, like the stuff that makes you bald, that doesn't work. Um, External radiation is not really proven to work very well. They'll try it on the tumor on my skull if that keeps growing because it's down here, it's on my occipital bone, like, right near my brainstem.
Okay.
So if that I think it's like, I don't know, it's like a centimeter right now, but if it keeps growing, they'll try and radiate it, but it c it can, like it can destroy the bone, so you do it osteonecrosis, I think
Mhm.
that's what it's called, and
Okay.
your bones start to die, and they don't want that on my skull. So they're trying to wait to do that as long as they can if it stays stable. And then so radioactive iodine is what they use to treat thyroid cancer, but the dose they gave me was so big because they were worried that I would become radioactive iodine resistant. So now that won't work.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, and that so there's not a ton that they can do for it.
Mhm.
There are a couple options, like, if things start growing, but they really just slow down the growth.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's just it's it's not bad because there's not a lot they can do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's
it's
kind of a and
it's a win-lose situation because my daily life is normal, but it's because of
the
that.
treatment.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And are there treatments that they're working on right now that are showing promise?
Um,
Do they do anything experimental
so
or
they do immunotherapy, but they do it with it's not, again, not proven to work with thyroid cancer alone, so they do it combined with a drug that's a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, which basically blocks, like, cell signaling, so you can't have phosphorylation cascades in your cell, and you can't basically make more cells. Um, but you need a mutation to target for those. Lucky me, I actually don't have one. Um, I'm like but that's what I'm saying is, like, everything that could have gone wrong, like, went wrong in this
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm.
I have a RNA fusion, which is not for one I have a BRAF RNA fusion, which nobody has ever heard of.
Ever?
So my doctors take my case to their tumor boards at Georgetown and Washington Hospital Center, and none of them have ever seen anyone with a
Wow.
BRAF RNA fusion. So, there's options, but there's not really anything, like, specifically targeting what I need to target because I don't have anything to
Mhm.
target, basically. There's no DNA mutation that would be targetable to, use one of these new drugs, so,
Gotcha. So it would be something brand new essentially that hasn't come out yet that would
yeah.
have to be different. Is there something that people who are listening, is there something that like some sort of research that's going on right now that people could contribute to? Is there something um that you think is moving this forward that could help with finding some sort of cure or help for what you're going through?
Um, I honestly am not sure what's going on with that. Like, my doctors so I go to CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They have, like,
Hmm.
the advanced thyroid cancer program in the country. Like,
Yeah.
people travel from California to go to CHOP. Um, they are on the same page as my doctors here in DC, so I don't know if there's anything going on. Um, but, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm okay where I am. Like, the reason that I'm not already they use the tyrosine kinase inhibitors to slow down the growth, whatever. if you have a mutation, they can target and stop. They can stop the growth, but the reason they haven't already put me on it is because they really make you sick, and they don't make you like, these drugs do not make you feel good, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people have to stop them because the side effects are so bad, and, like, where I'm at, I think they think it's better for me to be off of it
Mm-hmm.
than to be sick.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So,
How did you
I
get?
don't
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you being so vulnerable with all these different things so people can get some insight into what you have to walk through day to day, the mindset you have to have, and the all the different things that you've had to think about and work through. I don't know hardly anyone who speaks like that and is as open, which I think is super encouraging. Can you talk a little bit about your path to, I mean, you're now sharing things publicly. You're on a podcast right now, but you also had have a social media account dedicated towards your journey. So obviously openly speaking about things. Why did you start doing that? Was it always like that? Have you always been this open? What's that process looked like for you?
So when I was first diagnosed, I my close friends knew, and, like, Nicole knew, my coaches, my family, all of them, but outside of my, like, direct circle, I didn't tell anyone. Um, I think just me looking healthy, it gives me the ability to hide it
Mm,
almost. So, for the first month or so, I wasn't ready to tell anyone because it is a big thing. It is I don't think I even realized how impactful this would be on my life. Like, I thought they took the tumor out, like, I'd just get radioactive iodine, I'd be fine. That was the plan. That was what was supposed to happen. And so I just was not I had not fully processed everything. And then I posted something on my Instagram, um, in January about
mhm,
it, January 2022, and I slowly started talking to people about it. And I think part of the reason that I opened up so much was because, first of all, no one's ever heard of my cancer. It's so rare. Um, like at CHOP, I think there's 2 or 3 other kids that they're treating with Hürthle cell, um, which is not a lot. My doctor's only seen 2 patients, and he doesn't treat kids. He treats adults.
mhm,
So he's only seen 2 people who have Hürthle cell thyroid cancer with bone mets. And just, like, if you look at the way it's spread, the way, like, skull, bone mets, like, spine mets, all of that, it's like 55-year-old men, 70-year-old women. Like, it shouldn't have happened the way it
mhm,
did. And so people would make comments to me that were, first of all, very insensitive, and second of all, just kind of coming from a place of curiosity, but just didn't come out the right way, and
mhm,
it was something for me. I was like, I would want people to know and to be able to learn so that they don't say something that they probably shouldn't have, but, like, it comes from a good place. It really
sure.
does. A lot of the comments do come from a good place, but it's the lack of awareness almost that
Yeah.
leads to these comments.
What are
So
some of the
I
comments that you've heard that, or
so
things that people say that you're like,
I mean,
yeah, you probably shouldn't?
s well, there's one big one, but a lot of people, like, will look at me and ask me if I'm gonna die, and I'm like, the answer is probably yes. My doctors told me 2 years ago that the goal was 10 years. If it was really bad, less than 5, and then anything after 10, I'd be really lucky. Like, if I got 20 years, I'd be super lucky. And so like, people would ask me that, and normally I just say, like, "I'm gonna be fine," because it's hard to have that conversation, especially with someone you're not very close with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's just or they'd be like, "You look fine," like or they'd make someone told me it was the day after I got diagnosed. I got diagnosed Thursday. I got an email that said, "You have a new test result," and I click on it. My doctor is calling my mom. I'm, like, sobbing. That was a whole thing. But the next day so Fridays, we had swim meets for high school, and
Okay.
if you want to swim in your high school meet, you have to go to class for at least, like, 1 period during the day. So I
Mm-hmm.
showed up to my AP Chem lab. I did my AP Chem, I left, and then I swam that night.
Oh
But
my gosh.
somebody came up to me and told me that I was super lucky that I didn't have to take the quiz that day, and I just looked at them. Like,
That's
we're at this meet, and someone's like, "You are just so lucky you didn't have to take that quiz, like,
oh
that
my
was so
gosh.
hard." And I was like, "You did not just say that to me." But,
Unbelievable.
I mean, even now, like, I go to school in Memphis. I have an oncologist in Memphis that
Mm-hmm.
basically, when I need to get my infusions, I just get them there, or, like, blood work, stuff like that. And so I went to go get my infusion, and I'm sitting in the waiting room with my friend Lydia, and I'm talking to her about, like, how I got diagnosed, how they found my tumor, like, all this stuff. And then this lady sitting next to us, she's there with her husband, and she turns to me, she's like, "Oh, I have thyroid cancer too." And so she has papillary, which is one of the most common types of thyroid cancer, but she's telling me how, like, they only wanna take half her thyroid out and how we're so lucky that we're in the, like, 97% of survivors, and there are cancers that are actually deadly. And I just sat there and, like, I smiled and I nodded, whatever. But then I went home and I sobbed
Mm-hmm.
for, like, 2 hours because that was just, like she didn't mean anything by it, but she had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just being able to reach people, I actually made a TikTok a few weeks ago that's, like, it says, like it got, like, 2 point some million views, but it's, like, you proof you never know what people are going through, and it's a picture of me standing there, like, smiling, and something had happened with I was diagnosed with cancer the day before, or, like, a few weeks after, and I posted something on Instagram of me smiling, or I was at prom,
Mm-hmm.
and they found the 12 tumors the week before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so easy to hide these things, and it's so easy for people to just not have any idea, but I think that's, I wish people just would understand that, like, you really don't know what people are going through,
Yeah.
and so I think my, like, Instagram account brings light to that there are things that, like, I look healthy, I look strong, I look fine. Um, and I think that can show you that there is more to things and just, like, to be
Mm.
kind to people
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know this. Like,
Yeah.
you would have no idea looking at me.
That's such a good that's such a good reminder, and just day-to-day truth people should live by is that be kind to people. You really don't have any clue what people are going through. I feel like every single person you come across in life, there's something that they're going through that you have no idea about. And so that's really great to hear from you, and I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from that. And I'm sorry you've had to go through all those different things, and I'm sure it's daily, that you encounter different things and you think about them in a different way than anybody else would because of the things you have to go through.
Mhm.
Um, and there's just a certain level of courage and bravery that you have to have, right, to walk through what you're walking through. And it's incredible. And what's something just like if you could share something that maybe that you wish people knew that that they don't realize, like, about you, would it be what you already said? Would there be something else, like, hey, what something
Um,
that just like day to day, something that you wish people could know about you, or that you have to go through, that would just be so nice if everybody was on that page?
well, I think, like, people always ask me, they're like, "Why are you at school?" Like, "Why?" So I'm a chemistry major. People are like, "Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you go to school? Why would you be in Memphis? Why are you doing this?" And I'm like, "Because I'm alive." Like,
Mm-hmm.
they say I could never. I'm like, "Well, I don't have a choice. The choice is strong or dead, and I don't want the second option."
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I do, and I continue my life because I am alive. And I think just understanding that just because I do have metastatic cancer, I do have to deal with these things, like, I'm I'm still here, I'm still alive. I think that's just the bottom line. Like, I wanna become a pediatric oncology nurse because my nurses made,
Let's go.
like, the biggest difference, when I was in the hospital. There were many times last year. Like, the week before conference, I was in the hospital because my kidneys were shutting down.
Wow.
I was on scoring team at conference the week after. We actually won, so
Wow.
hopefully we win again this year. But the week before, I was in the hospital for 4 days because I was halfway to kidney failure. But I do it. I do all these things because I love it and because I am alive. And I
Mhm.
think it almost is really hurtful to say, "Why are you doing this? Like,
Mhm.
why would you still be here?" Because it's minimizing the person. Like,
Mhm.
my cancer is me, but I'm not my cancer.
Mhm. Yep.
And that's yeah.
That makes
So,
a ton of sense, and I absolutely love what you said, and that is something that um I feel like would be really difficult. And honestly, a lot of people struggle with identity issues, like letting certain things define them that aren't them.
mm,
And I feel like cancer would be one that you would be extra hard, because it's something that, is always on your mind, and something that you're always fighting, and that people, are probably always asking, different things about, and not necessarily super sensitive to. So it's always on the forefront of your mind. And so you could fall into this trap, I'm sure, of believing like, oh, this is who I am. Like I have, but like, no, that's just a part of your story. It's a part of Kathleen's story. But you are Kathleen. Like, you are so much bigger than that.
well,
There's a million different parts of your story. This particular part of your story, which is super challenging in ways that a lot of people can never understand and will never understand, um, is just another way for you to inspire people and just show off who you are.
yeah.
And
Well,
go ahead.
so I this might be controversial, but I don't believe that everything happens for a reason.
Hmm.
I believe that you have the ability to find purpose in a situation. Like, I don't think that I should have to get metastatic cancer to inspire other people or to make some sort of difference, but I believe that I have chosen to do this.
Hmm.
Um, so I am a Tri-Delt, it's my sorority, and our so Memphis is where St. Jude is, so our national and local philanthropies are St. Jude. So, like, I that has given me the opportunity to continue to make a difference for other kids who have cancer. And so,
So
like,
cool.
with my Instagram, with one of the girls in my health equity class wrote an article about me for the Rhodes newspaper or magazine or whatever it was. It was on the little website. So every time I'd open the website, it'd be like a picture of me. It was really weird. But I've chosen to find purpose in a horrible situation
Hmm.
that doesn't but I don't think this fell into my lap
Mm-hmm.
because I easily could have shut down. I could have not wanted to do anything. I could have quit. I could have quit school, swimming, whatever it was. But I chose to do this.
Mm.
Um, I chose to continue to do these things. So
Yeah, that's super inspiring. And just, I feel like for anybody who's listening, if you're not inspired by this, you're absolutely nuts. I feel like whatever people are going through, they can take a lesson from you and realize, hey, I can choose to find purpose in this. Like this is the hand that I've been dealt. So what am I gonna do with it? Like if something you can't change the specific situation, but you can change the mindset that you choose to have and how you choose to use it. And that's something that you've done so phenomenally, that I think it's absolutely amazing. And um, can you give, I want to ask just one last question about just on, you talked about like, hey, I'm still alive and I'm going to live it, you know, to the fullest, essentially, is what I hear you saying. Do you feel like, and this may be a cliche thing or a thing you get asked a lot, I'm not sure, but do you find that like how you value each day has significantly increased? Do you feel like that's changed at all? Is it about the same, or just
um,
like different?
I think I definitely have a different outlook on life than I did. I mean, sometimes like I do get angry about it. And I'm like, I should not feel lucky to live to 27. Like
Hmm.
that should not, you know what I'm saying? Like that should not be something you feel lucky to do
Hmm.
in any situation. But I do like I wake up and I everything I do has a purpose. And I think that's the difference is I used to just kind of like I do something and like yes it was for whatever, but every single thing that I do in my day, every relationship that I have, like friendship, whatever, there's value and there's like real purpose with
Hmm.
it. And that I think that's how it shifted a little bit. Like it's not that I've put more into it, it's that I've been able to take more out.
Mm, that makes
Like
sense.
I've been able to see more, more value and more, like, purpose in the way that I live
Yeah.
my life. Because I don't
Uh,
think anything I've done has, like, drastically changed. Like, I don't know, hang out, do whatever, I sleep a lot. It's my favorite activity. I love to nap. Um, but I think just being grateful for, like, little things that I'm able to do, like
mhm,
because I know that at some point I will lose the ability to do these things.
mhm,
So every single moment that I get to swim, that I get to walk around, that I get to be with people that I love, like, I will take it.
mhm. I feel like people finding purpose and meaning and value in the time that's right in front of them right now. You said talked about taking it one day at a time. Um, that's a mindset that I want to adopt all the time, and that I speak to athletes and people around the country about. Like, hey, all you can control is what's right in front of you right now. And oftentimes we think down the road about all these moments things that could happen and things that make us anxious, or live and dwell in the past,
Yeah.
which takes away from the joy of the present, right? And so being present is something I think that's hard for anybody, but especially when you have all different types of adversity and obstacles. And I feel like you're doing it beautifully, and I know that people will take a lot from that. Just okay, be present, live one day at a time. And Kathleen, I want to see you beat the hell out of this cancer. I want to see you do things that nobody's ever done. You're in a situation where it sounds like very few people have ever been. And so I could see you being in a spot far down the road that few people would have ever thought possible. And so I appreciate you so much coming on here, sharing your heart, and all the different things that so many people can learn from, and hopefully inspire other people who may be in the same situation that you are, or I know no situation is the same, but a similar situation, and being fearful of going through what they're going through. And you can be a wicked inspiration and encouragement to them, to live with purpose regardless of what's thrown your way. And so, is there any final things you want to say on here before we sign off? This has been absolutely amazing.
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I know everybody who's watching will be blessed by this. So thank you so much, Kathleen.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to the Swim Strong Dryland podcast. If you'd like to be a part of the Swim Strong Dryland family, you can reach out to us via email or social media. You can also follow Swim Strong Dryland on YouTube and TikTok for more educational content.